I can't be more excited to introduce Bob Babbitt. Your business card once said Froggy in Chief.
The Frog in Chief, funky dude, chief co-founder of Challenge Athletes Foundation. Challenge Athletes Foundation has been really, really special. If someone needed a piece of equipment, training, or travel to stay in a game of life through sport, that CAF would always be there.
This is just one of a million stories that you guys have. And I recognize that Challenge Athlete Foundation is a ripple effect that has changed the world.
So now it's been 26 years. We've raised $112 million. We've sent out over 26,000 grants to athletes in all 50 states and Puerto Rico and 43 countries.
These are communities that these individuals are now so invested in.
Yes.
It is their family, it is their life, and it is their fire now.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Life to the Max podcast with my host,
Janet Breslin.
and I am Evan DeMarco. Or am I Janet Breslin and you're Evan DeMarco?
We're
still working
figure
on
that
this.
out eventually.
So we were just talking when we first decided to start this whole platform, and we were looking at guests, and we really wanted to create this message of influential people doing amazing things. My first thought was the guest that we have here at our table today. Interestingly enough, and this must have been about 12, 13 years ago, when I first met this guy, he was wearing a giant frog suit.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can't be more excited to introduce Bob Babbitt. Your business card once said Froggy in Chief.
Yes.
And I don't know what it says anymore.
The Frog in Chief, funky dude, chief funky dude, and co-founder of Challenge Athletes Foundation, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so I don't think that there's probably a single more influential person when it comes to not only what we're going to talk about, Challenge Athlete Foundation, but really putting things like triathlon and some of the major sports that we now recognize as some of the most influential sports that people compete in on the map. So
Thank you.
Thank you, because you seem to have carried a long and heavy burden for a lot of years, and so we couldn't be more happy to have you here on the show.
Well, thanks. It's been a labor of love right from the beginning. It's been pretty special.
One of the stories that I love to hear you tell is kind of how Challenged Athlete Foundation began.
Sure.
So give our audience, who probably doesn't know that much about CAF, a little bit of backstory.
Absolutely. So a friend of ours back in 1985, long before Janet was born, a guy named Jim McLaren was a 300-pound offensive lineman at Yale. And Jimmy was taking acting classes in New York, was on his motorcycle, and a New York City bus hits Jimmy, throws him 90 feet in the air, dead on arrival, lives but loses his lower left leg, and reinvents himself as an endurance athlete. At the time, I had a magazine called Competitor Magazine. I'm covering running, triathlon, cycling, mountain biking, and Jimmy comes out and runs a marathon with a walking leg, not what you see now, the high-tech prosthetic, and he runs 3:16 for the marathon with a walking leg. Then he comes to Hawaii and goes top 20% of everybody in the race at the Ironman World Championship, which is a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, 26.2-mile run. He goes 10 hours and 42 minutes. Don't try that at home. It's unbelievable. So at that
On a
point,
walking leg.
On a walking leg. So at that point, I'm covering Jimmy as the Babe Ruth of amputee athletes. He's changing the world. And then 8 years later, he's racing in Mission Viejo, and he's on his road bike, or his triathlon bike. A van goes through a closed intersection, hits the back of his bike, propels him headfirst in a pole. A guy who's already an amputee becomes quadriplegic.
Oh, my gosh.
So at that point, myself and two close friends, Jeffrey Escon and Rick Kozlowski, the three of us got together, and we knew we needed to do something for Jimmy. And from covering wheelchair athletes through Competitor Magazine, when I'd ask athletes who'd been paralyzed, what's the worst part of your new lot in life? It was always, I'm 30 years old, here come mom and dad back in my life. No sense of self, no sense of independence. So our goal was fairly simple. Let's put on a little triathlon at La Jolla Cove, which is like less than a mile from where we're at right now, and buy Jimmy a van with hand controls. Give him independence. And so our goal was $25,000. That first year we raised $49,000, and we thought, okay, our job is done. We'll give Jimmy the van. We're good to go. And 3 amputee women came up to us, and they're like, it's great what you did for Jimmy. He got us into endurance sports, but did you know if you get injured, your health insurance will cover a walking around leg or an everyday wheelchair? Nothing to do with sports is covered by insurance because insurance companies consider sports a quote-unquote luxury item. Everybody in your listening audience knows that sports is not a luxury item. It's a huge part of who we are and what we do. So at that point, we decided we'd get our 501(c) and become an official charity. If someone needed a piece of equipment, training, or travel to stay in a game of life through sport, that CAF would always be there. So now it's been 26 years. We've raised $112 million. We've sent out over 26,000 grants In April, we sent out 3,260 grants, totaling $4.8 million to athletes in all 50 states and Puerto Rico and 43 countries, 103 different sports. Did you know there were 103 different sports?
I
didn't know
didn't.
that. I had
I'm
no
trying to
idea.
count what I only know a few.
I know, right? 103 different sports. Actually, I was thinking that'd be really fun. We're going to have Jenna do something with all 103 different sports. Wheelchair,
I'm
rugby.
totally down. That actually puts me.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Is curling one of those? Because that's a debate on whether curling's a sport.
Well, I think there is wheelchair curling. I think there's hand cycling. There's a sport that you would love. We did this fall or this winter at the MLB network, Major League Baseball Network. Beep Baseball. It's baseball for the blind. And the way it worked, we did this in studio with Harold Reynolds from the MLB network and with another one of the players. And basically, everybody on each team wears blindfolds because there's different levels of blindness.
Right.
So if I'm batting with a blindfold on. The ball has a beep in it. Your person is pitching and catching, and they are sighted, right? And then there's like 4 people in the field that are all wearing blindfolds, and there's 2 people beyond them who direct them where the ball is going. So when the person pitches it to you, you try to imagine this. You're totally blind. You're trying to hit this ball based on sound, right? Then if you hit the ball, there's 2 what look like tackling dummies, one down the first baseline, one down the third baseline. So when you hit the ball, they activate the sound in one of the 2 dummies, and you run to it. If you get there before someone picks up the ball, you're safe. If they get the ball before you get there, you're out. And
that actually sounds like fun.
It's really fun, and it became a great episode on the network. But the thing that was that's amazing, if somebody in the field wearing the eye shades catches a ball on the fly, immediately goes into the Hall of Fame. Immediately goes into the Hall of Fame if you catch a ball on a fly.
Has anyone done this yet?
They've got like 2 or 3 in history have caught the ball on a fly.
Wow.
But you see these guys throwing their bodies in front of the ball. This is one of your sports that you got to try. You would love it.
We're going to go play
beep baseball.
That's actually a hard thing to say, really. Like
I know it's hard to say that 100 times in a row, but it's one of those cool sports. And quad rugby, you'll see some of the rugby chairs when you come by the CAF building, but it's for quadriplegics, and it's indoors, and the chairs look like they're out of Star Wars because basically they bash into each other.
Wow.
And it's 4 people on a team, and everybody on the court has a different value, and so depending on what your physical skills are. So if you've got use of your hands, you have a higher point value than someone who doesn't have much use of their hands, right? And so you have a total of 8 points on the floor at a time among 4 people. And you, as a coach, you have to figure out what 4 people that equal 8 points would be the best group for you right now to win the game. It's a Paralympic sport, and it's brutal. And the amount of training these guys, it's pretty amazing. You'll see these chairs. These chairs weigh about 50 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
You will. You'll get to see it. We'll put you in a chair tomorrow and beat the crap out of you. You'll like it.
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Love a good beating.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Challenge Athletes Foundation has been really, really special. Just seeing our athletes and just seeing the stories we had. What I love is how you never know where the stories are going to go. Mm-hmm. And when I speak to groups all the time and they talk about, what's your business plan? I'm like, well, sometimes you can't have a business plan. We had one young man named Emmanuel Afosu Yaboa. You've probably heard this story.
Yep.
From Ghana. And when people ask, I'm one person. Like, you guys are trying to help change the world. Mm-hmm. How can I change the world? I'm one person. It's a big, gigantic place. How do I do it? Well, this kid was born in Ghana, and he's missing a tibia. And so he's got a fibula sticking out the back of his knee with a foot on it. In a country where there's 20 million people in Ghana and 2 million are disabled, 10% of the population. And in his country, if you have a disability, you're considered a second-class citizen. So when he was born with this deformed leg, his dad deserted the family. And mom refused to abandon him in the jungle, which is what people did with disabled children. And she would carry Emmanuel to school every day. Only disabled kid in school. When he turned 13, mom became very ill, and he left school to shine shoes for a couple of dollars a day. Then, when he turned 18, mom passed away, and he decided he wanted to do something to honor her life, and he decided he wanted to get a bicycle and ride across Ghana to show people in Ghana that someone with this disability could do anything. One problem, he doesn't own a bicycle. So he found us through a missionary and online, Found Challenge Athlete Foundation, sent us a grant request asking for a bicycle. And we get this thing from, who knows where Ghana is? Near Cleveland? Where the hell is Ghana at? We have no idea. We received this grant request, and his birth date is Cinco de Mayo, which is my birthday. And we're like, we'll send him a bike. We'll never hear from the kid.
I'm the 4th. You're the 5th.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we sent him a bike. The kid rides 600 kilometers on one leg on a mountain bike across Ghana. And people are running after him like he's Forrest Gump. And it's like, oh, my God, this is unbelievable. We're getting all this media reports back. And we decided to bring him to San Diego for the event we started for Jim McLaren.
Wow.
He gets here. He's got $3 in his pocket. He's never been out of Ghana, never been on a plane. Does our 56-mile bike ride on one leg on a mountain bike. And you guys have driven up Torrey Pines. Imagine riding that on one leg on a mountain bike. It takes him, it's 56 miles, takes him 7 hours. And I go up to him afterwards, like, so Emmanuel, how was the ride? He goes, Bob, I did not know San Diego was so hilly. So we decide to go have him visit Loma Linda Hospital because they're our title sponsor to see if this kid's a candidate for prosthetic. They go that he is. We do a deal where we'll take care of the cost of the leg and transportation back and forth to Ghana. They'll take care of a homestay and the operation. We sent him back to Ghana, and then I started thinking, if we don't capture this, if we don't film this, what a miss this will be. So from all of my years working on the Ironman, I had become very close friends with this woman, Lisa Lax, who had won 13 Emmy Awards for her work on the Ironman TV show and the NBC Olympics. And her twin sister, Nancy Stern, got 3 Emmys for her work on the Tour de France. They're twin sisters. So they had just created Lookalike Productions, and they were going to do documentary films. So I reached out to him and said, I don't know if this is a documentary, but I'd love to have somebody capture what Emmanuel's leg looks like now, be there for the operation, and be there when he does our bike ride next year with 2 legs rather than 1. And they go, well, so when's he coming? Like 5 months, 6 months? This sounds great. I said, no, 5 days. They put a crew on a plane. They fly to Ghana. They start shooting. They come and follow him when he comes to Loma Linda for the operation. He has the operation, and 6 weeks later, he does a triathlon. 3-mile run with his new prosthetic leg, 12-mile bike ride, and a 150-yard swim in a pool with Rudy Garcia Tolson, one of our double above knee amputee kids. And then we sent him back to Ghana. Now he's got a $15,000 leg on in a country with a per capita income of $400. And he's wearing long pants for the first time in his life because long pants wouldn't go over the stub that he had sticking out of the back of his knee. And it's like he lives in this town called Koforidua, and it's a ticker tape parade through the town in our cruise, filming this whole thing. Then we bring him back the following year, and he does our bike ride with 2 legs rather than 1 leg in 4 hours rather than 7 hours. Receives our Most Inspirational Athlete Award from Robin Williams. We fly him up to Nike to receive what's called the Casey Martin Award for people who are inspirational to the disabled. Comes with a $25,000 grant. Again, per country with a per capita income of $400.
Wow.
And then we match that with another $25,000. So now he's going to be our ambassador to Ghana with $50,000. Then we send him to meet the Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, who's from Ghana, to talk about the rights of the disabled in Ghana. And then we sent a rough cut to Oprah, who agrees to narrate this film called Emmanuel's Gift. Then Lisa and Nancy send a note to ESPN going, we think that Jim McLaren and Emmanuel Afoso-Yeboah would be great winners of the Arthur Ashe Courage Award at the ESPYs. And next thing you know, we're sitting in the Nokia Theater up in L.A., and Matthew Perry from Friends is hosting the show for the ESPYs. Introduces Oprah, who walks out to introduce this video piece. It's 12 minutes, narrated by Kiefer Sutherland. And the piece is spectacular on Emmanuel and Jim and connecting the dots with those 2 guys. And it finishes, and there's Bill Walton and LeBron James, and everybody's crying, and it's unbelievable. And somebody who was watching this happen was named George Bush in the White House. Hey, this kid's shining shoes a year earlier, right? So we get an invitation because we're going to launch the film at the National Geographic Theater the following weekend in D.C. And President Bush's people say, Mr. Bush would like to meet Emmanuel. Wow. So we're in the waiting area, and we're watching TV, and there's these bombings in the subways in London that are happening right now. This major world trauma is happening. We're going like, there's no way we're going to see President Bush today. They usher us in, and Rumsfeld and Cheney are sprinting out of the Oval Office. And they usher us in, and we're just like the 3 of us are right here, right? You're President Bush, you're Emmanuel, I'm me, and President Bush is like, Emmanuel, what I appreciate is you were never looking for government help. You were looking to make a difference for the disabled in your country on your own. So when you ride your mountain bikes, do you ride SPD pedals? Do you ride cages? Do you ride flat pedals? What do you do when you ride your mountain bike? Because I ride with my boys in Quantico, and we ride hard. And so Emmanuel's wearing this gown. He's wearing his gown, and it's covering his leg. And he reaches down to disconnect his leg to show the president how his leg works. And when he does it, it makes an audible click, which the Secret Service was not very happy about.
Oh.
They start moving towards us. And the next thing you know, there's the most powerful man on the earth holding this prosthetic leg in his hand. And the next day we get an email from the guy who set this whole thing up for us going, hey, guys, I want to let you know we keep a list of the firsts that happen in the Oval Office. The first person to take their leg off in the Oval Office, Emmanuel Afoso-Yeboah from Ghana. And then what happened from that is the next week when Emmanuel flew back to Ghana, the president of Ghana, who had seen Emmanuel on the front page of the papers with the most powerful man on the planet, met him at the airport and said, I will get your Disability Act presented to Parliament, and 6 months later it was passed. So flash ahead, 2010, we're riding mountain bikes down in Texas with President Bush, his Warrior 100s, myself, my partner Jeffrey, and a number of our war veterans who lost limbs in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the first night after we ride, we were doing the old handshake and meet and greet with President Bush. I'm like, Mr. Bush, sir, we met a few years ago. I was in the Oval Office with this young man from Ghana. And he goes, Emmanuel, how the hell's Emmanuel doing? I never did find out. Does he ride SPDs? Does he ride flat pedals? Does he ride cages? It was freaking, and I told him, I said, Mr. Bush, because of you, this Disability Act was voted in Ghana, and you helped change that country. He said, well, you give that young man my best. Emmanuel, his first little girl, he named Linda after Loma Linda Hospital. His second little girl was named Comfort after her mom. And so when people ask me about, and now he speaks around the world and is a motivational speaker and trying to do more and he's trying to create a whole fitness center in Ghana where everybody who's working there is a disabled athlete.
Wow.
Yeah,
CAF has changed his life.
And Emmanuel's changed our lives.
Right.
Yeah, and that was really, really special. That was back like in 2005, and the film Emmanuel's Gift is really, really special. And actually the piece narrated by Kiefer Sutherland on the ESPY Award piece on Jim McLaren and Emmanuel, you can check that out on YouTube. It's pretty spectacular.
That's phenomenal.
So not only did you change, this is what I loved about Challenged Athlete Foundation. And before we kind of started this, I was telling a story of the $1 Million Challenge, and this must have been 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there just watching this group of kids play, and there's this one kid, this young boy, maybe 5 or 6, double amputee, and there's this woman standing next to me, and she's just watching these kids play.
So she's not a mom or anything. She's just...
No, she is a mom.
Oh, she's a mom.
She's a mom, but I was kind of watching the kids, and I was looking at her, and she had this smile on her face, like, it was just this ray of sunshine. And unprovoked, I'm not talking to her, I'm just watching the kids, and she just looks at me and she says, this is the only time of the year that my kid comes here and he feels normal.
Right.
And I thought about that as we were kind of talking about who to interview for this, but then, this is just one of a million stories that you guys have. And I recognize that Challenged Athlete Foundation is a ripple effect that has changed the world. It's that, it's one kid who just needed a leg to ride a mountain bike for his mom, set in motion a chain of events that, how do you calculate the value of that on a cosmic scale? And I just don't think you can. This is the stuff that changes the world. And
yeah, changing athletes one at a time.
One at a time.
Yeah. Our slogan's from one came many, and it happens every day, right? It really does happen every day. Another fun story is we had a football player named Alex Ruiz, quarterback in Temecula, Linfield High, Temecula. This is 2 years ago, and he was rolling out. He got tackled, and they thought that he dislocated his knee. It turned out that he had ripped the popliteal artery in the back of his knee. Went without blood flow for 10 hours. Ended up losing his leg below the knee. And he's in the hospital, and turns out the guy who's going to build his leg is a guy named Peter Harsh, who's a prosthetist right by our office and works with a lot of our athletes. So I'm thinking, Drew Brees in his flag football league, they raise money for CAF. I'm like, it'd be really cool. This kid was a quarterback. How fun would it be to have Drew present this young man with a leg? So I reached out to Peter, and he connected me with Shirley, Alex's mom, and I called her up, and I told her what I was thinking about doing. She starts crying. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. She goes, no. Drew is Alex's hero. He's got quotes on the wall from Drew Brees. They told him he was too short to play. They told Drew Brees he was too short to play. So anyways, we set this thing up for May 11th, 2018, and we set it up at the Polo Fields at his flag football league for Alex to come out. He's still in his wheelchair, and we were at at the flag football league. And I tell all the kids a story, and I've got KBC, Kurt Sandoval, KBC there. We got our own team filming it. I've learned long ago, you got to film everything. You never know. And so the next thing you know is I introduce Alex, and I'm saying, Alex, talk a little bit about Drew Brees. He says, well, Drew has always been my hero and somebody who motivated me to be a quarterback, and he's very special. I said, well, I got someone who's very special here who'd like to meet you. And Drew comes walking out with a walking leg and goes, listen, Alex, we've got a walking leg for you here, but when you're ready, we have a running leg to get you back running again. And it's real emotional. And Alex goes, hey, Bob, you think Drew would run some pass patterns for me? So he gets up out of the wheelchair on crutches, and Drew Brees is running pass patterns, and he's throwing balls, and we're like, oh, my God, this is unbelievable. So then Kurt Sandoval runs his piece, and then it gets picked up by Channel 1 in New York. And then Alex is sitting in homeroom, and he's a junior in high school, right? And he's like, his phone's ringing. He's, excuse me, I have CNN on the phone. I have to take this. CNN, USA Today. I called the woman, Kristen Lapis from ESPN. I said, I think this could be a pretty cool story. And I sent her our video, and she was like, I love this. At the same time, a player from the Chicago Bears named Zach Miller had the exact same injury in a game against Drew Brees in the Superdome in New Orleans, and it ripped his popliteal artery. They saved his leg, but he and Alex became close buddies through Instagram and through email and they connected. And because actually Alex was ahead of him in terms of his recovery. So ESPN is going to do a feature. And I kept calling Kristen and say, when's this going to air? When's this going to air? She says, well, we're not sure. And football season's going. And meanwhile, it's now a little over a year after he lost his leg. And I go up for the homecoming game, and Alex is playing. It's been a little over a year. He's back in the football field with his prosthetic leg. And the first pass he throws is a touchdown pass.
Oh,
and there's
wow.
9 ESPN cameras there. And then this big hulking person walks by me to the sideline there, and it's Zach Miller. Zach flew out from Chicago, got an Uber from San Diego Airport out to Linfield High, was there for Alex, and then he got back in an Uber, went to L.A., and flew home. So anyways, I kept calling, and the Saints lost in that controversial call last year against the Rams, and I was like, oh, this piece is going to air this year. And then I get a call from Kristen. She goes, can you get the family to Atlanta for the Super Bowl? And I was like, wow, that's nice. You got to take them to Super Bowl. She says, no. We have a 13-minute feature called The Brotherhood on Alex Ruiz and Zach Miller, narrated by Drew Brees. And it's going to air on it's our Sunday on NFL Countdown on ESPN on game day, on Super Bowl game day. So I'm like, okay, I'll find something. If we get the whole family down there, and next thing you know, Alex is on set with Randy Moss and Jen Ponder and Coach Ryan, and we leave the piece airs, and it's like everybody in the studio there is standing ovation. It's a beautiful piece. And then we leave there, and all these people want autographs from Alex. And then he just got a USC scholarship that he's in junior college right now. And next year he has what's called the Swim with Mike scholarship. He will be going on a full ride to USC next year. So it's fascinating. And then he played baseball all last spring. He played at third base and pitched on his baseball team. So you come in that point of trauma, you never know where it's going to go. And sometimes I'll have athletes tell me that this was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I've been in the Paralympics. I never thought of myself as an Olympic athlete.
Right, and a quote that has recently I've connected well with lately is "Your mess becomes your message," and I think that
it's a great line.
Right, and I think that that is a good representation of what you're talking about here too.
Absolutely, yeah. You change it. You know what? We underestimate the power of sport in terms of healing, in terms of just empowering you and making you feel good about yourself. And it's really powerful, and we see it every single day. I love when we see the changes in our athletes. You can see how comfortable they are on their own skin. Like the mom was saying, I had a mom tell me the same thing. She goes, for 364 days a year, my child feels different, but for that weekend that they're with us, and you see legs laying everywhere, he's the same as everybody else.
Right.
Did
Wow.
you think when you guys started to, get money for a van
Yeah.
that it would end up like this?
Never. No, but you know what? I've learned a long time ago from first doing Ironman when there was only 100 of us doing Ironman back in 1980, and the year before there was only 15. But I knew when I finished the race that day, and I had no idea what I was doing. I thought you swam 2.4 miles, rode 56, camped out, rode back the next day, and ran the marathon. Right? I had pannier, sleeping bag, and tent on my bike. I had no idea you did the whole thing in one day. I had a bike from a police auction with solid rubber tires and a Radio Shack radio and a fuzzy raccoon seat cover and the pannier, sleeping bag, and tent. No idea. And when I finished it, I felt like I got this business card that told me I can do anything. And so I was a school teacher at the time and came back, and there was a magazine in town here called Running News, and told the editor, this sport of triathlon is going to be big. You need to change the name to Running and Triathlon News. And he did. I think I was pretty persistent. And then the sport started growing. And when that magazine went out of business, and I went and met with two publishers, Southwest Cycling and California Bicyclist, and said, if we did a new magazine that combined running and triathlon and cycling, it could be really powerful. And both of them told me the same thing. Triathlon's a fad. It'll be gone in 5 years. This is 87. Running, we never put a skinny runner in our magazine. And cycling's the only sport we care about. We came back and we had nothing. And some friends came to us. My partner Lois, who was the art teacher at the school I taught at and became the best photographer in the sport. And they came to us, friends came and gave us a check for $17,000. Said, go start your own magazine. So we were under 20,000 pounds of bike racks in a guy's garage. We had 200 square feet for $200 a month. And we, didn't pay ourselves for a year and a half, but we loved it. We loved actually, we got 17. Our first print bill was 20. So we were 3,000 a hole when we first started. But, over time, we built that to 11 editions in a magazine and 500,000 circulation, and it became the competitor group. And we had 34 rock and roll marathons under our umbrella, and 18 Muddy Buddies is where we met.
Yep.
When I was in my frog outfits. And
Tri-Rock, I think I ran a couple of those.
Yeah, we had, it was revolutionary, because at the time, when rock and roll first started, there were really, when you talked about marathons, there was New York, there was Boston, all these one-offs. And when Tim Murphy, the creator of Rock and Roll Marathon, he said, listen, I need to come out hot. I want to do something. I want to do a series of marathons around the country. I'm going to have bands every mile. He lost $1 million on his first race in San Diego, but he stood the course because he knew in this day and age, you can't come out with an event with 2,000 people and grow it to 4 and 6 and 8. People perceive you based on what you are now. So he had to come out at 20,000 people, and he did. He came out at 20,000 with his first event, lost his ass, but got 20,000 people. But that changed running, because it became what used to be when Ev and I were into this way back in the day. It was 80% guys and 20% women, and all of a sudden it became 60% women. And all of a sudden, the whole buying habits at the expos changed. Rather than me and Evan going to the expo, picking up our race number and leaving, right, and being there for 2 seconds. In fact, to avoid paying for parking, I would drive around the block, and he'd get his stuff, and then he would drive around the block, and I'd get my stuff, so we could spend like 30 seconds there. All of a sudden, these expos became, wait a second, I want to buy clothing. I want to spend some time here.
Right.
I want to learn. It changed the whole world of endurance.
I think we saw the evolution of that, like just get in, get out, get your bib, and just get the hell out, to actually being a community.
Totally.
And I think that's one of the things that you've done such an incredible job of, is creating that community. I mean, rock and roll and all of those properties did that, but that was one of those first ones where, again,
right.
You go to Boston, you go to New York, you'd have these one-offs. But now it's like, people do that. Like I remember at the time, it's like people were like, "Well, I'm doing this rock and roll, and I'm doing this one, and I'm doing this one." Like they were making it vacation time.
Same with Spartan Race. Same with Muddy Buddy. As people start traveling the circuit, they get their friends and they go. I think at the beginning of rock and roll, because it was really one of the first events with a charity component to it, a lot of the women were doing it because of the charity. And then while they're doing it, they're like, "This is fun to do with my friends." And I'm feeling like I'm in the best shape of my life. And I'm feeling this is making me a better parent, a better employer, a better employee. We know the power of fitness. And when you do it as a group and it just becomes something that everybody enjoys, everybody wins, which is great.
And you bring an element of fun that I think is just, and actually reminds me, because Milena, the great Milena Glusak, who I think is still the fastest female half, or one, she's got some crazy title. But she came to me, she's like, "Hey, we're going to do this Muddy Buddy with Bob." And I'm like, "You want me to crawl through the mud?" And like, all right, fine, I'll do it. So, and I think it was in Anaheim.
It was actually Benelli Park.
That's right,
You
yeah.
did it at Benelli and San Dimas.
Yeah. So
Beautiful San Dimas.
Is that like a Tough Mudder?
It's actually the whole idea of Muddy Buddy. I had been putting on these silly events. We'd come back from Ironman every year in October, and everybody's really fit, right? But nobody wanted to do anything serious. So Thanksgiving would roll around, and I had done this event with horses called a ride and tie up in Lake Cuyamaca, and it was 2 people and a horse. So, Jen, imagine you and I are teammates. I start on a horse and ride 3-4 miles, tie the horse to a tree, start running. You run up, untie the horse, ride by me, and we leapfrog, right? This was a 28-mile race. One problem for me is I'd never been on a horse before. So it was a little bit of a – so when we get out there, I go out the week before, and I put a helmet on, and my horse's name was Shasta. You go like this, he goes left. You go like this, he goes right. I'm like, what's the big deal? They didn't tell us they start the race with a shotgun. So by the time I get to the horse at mile 4, my horse Shasta now changed his name to Lightning, and his hooves like this, and he's got smoke coming out of both nostrils, and I'm like, I'm getting on this thing. So I get on him, and I'm holding his mane, and he's jumping over people. He's Carl Lewis. He's just running all over the place. And we get to about mile 20, and at that point I've run probably 16 miles, right? My partner, who didn't run much, I was like, I'm happy to run a lot and not ride much. So now but I've been running a long time, and I'm thinking, okay, he's got to be tired. This last 8 miles from 20 to 28, I'll sit on his back, we'll roll in, no problem. I get to mile 20, and I see them loading my horse into one of those little horsey corrals on the back of a pickup truck. I'm like, where the hell's he going? And they're like, his hooves are sore. I'm like, his hooves are sore? I've run 16 miles. I'm a freaking mess. So then I had to sit on this guy. I had to run the last 8 miles. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, this is a great concept. I got to lose the horse. So on Thanksgiving in 1981, I got people what we'd call butt bikes. When you're down at the beach and you have those bikes with the big seats on them. My buddy Dan Rock had a bike shop here, and I had him bring all his bikes out to this place called Penasquitos Canyon. And I bought all these stuffed animals, and we made it in a safari. And I had stuffed animals all over the canyon, and it was a 12-mile thing, and every animal you brought back was worth time off your total time. Plus, we had a spam station, because the whole thing, we didn't want this thing to be serious. Right. Spam station, you gained 30 seconds every piece of spam you ate. It was on a graham cracker, and it was so much fun. And championship belts and the whole bit.
Oh, you had to eat spam? That was one of the
Yeah. Actually, the silly part is I started doing those so anyways, we had 50, just because it's stupid. Actually, I had sardines
awesome.
1 year or 2.
That's cool.
My whole mentality is I thought people would eat anything, and they proved me right. If you give them time off, they'll eat spam. They could care less. So we're doing this event, and so then I was doing it and I had a turkey outfit. So you can see a theme here. So I got a turkey outfit, and I had these big signs, welcome turkeys. I had no permits. 1 year I had the ranger, and you'll like this. So my girlfriend at the time, who eventually would become my wife, and she wouldn't do this stuff anymore, but when she was a girlfriend, I told everybody at the start I'm in my frog outfit. I'm like, guys, I'm trying to be environmentally conscious here, so I'm not going to use a gun to start the race. I'm going to use a bow and arrow. That's more environmentally correct. Right? So meanwhile, what they didn't know is I had Heidi on the trail about a quarter mile down with an arrow in her back and blood like ketchup all over the back of her shirt. So I start this thing, and then I wait for the screams as you would see her laying there with this arrow in her. That's pretty silly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then people would hide like Scott Tinley. I had all the top guys: Scott Tinley, Scott Molina, Mark Allen, and those championship belts made out of foil, right? And those were bragging rights. And people would find animals, and then they'd stash them and then pick them up on the way back, right? Well, then people would find other people's stashes, and they'd steal them, and these guys would be arguing over teddy bears at the finish of this thing. Some of the stuffed animals were seriously 4 or 5 feet tall. I've still got it's a little silly. I've got a storage unit with 300 stuffed animals in it still to this day, because you never know.
You never know when you need them.
So
or the spam, right?
Do you have video of that?
I've got photos. So then in 1999, this is when I had competitor, and we've been doing them on Thanksgiving, on Easter. I have a bunny suit, and then Christmas. And the best part is Meb Keflezighi, America's greatest marathoner, right? Meb lived in San Diego, and every Thanksgiving he would do his long run. And so we'd see each other every Thanksgiving. I'd be out there at 6 a.m. hiding animals in my turkey outfit. And here comes Meb the other way, sort of ignoring these big turkeys and everything. Hey, Meb. Hey, Bob. And he just turned around and go back the other way. So in 99, we're meeting with the president of Brooks, a guy named Bruce Pettit. And like, Bruce, what type of advertising budget you got this year? He goes, you know what, guys, I can't compete with Nike and Reebok and Adidas in terms of advertising, but if you had an event of some sort, I have promotional dollars. And I said, well, now you mention it, I have a thing, we have this thing called the Ride and Tie. And if we maybe changed it a little bit, so if Evan and I are partners, I start out on the mountain bike and go about a mile to a 25-foot inflatable with a cargo net up the front and the slide down the back and leave the bike, do the obstacle, start running. And then Evan runs up to that obstacle, does the obstacle, grabs a bike and rides by me. So it's 6 miles. Each person runs 3 and rides 3 one at a time. And you have to wait for your buddy and go through the mud pit together before going to the beer garden. That could be pretty cool. And he goes, I'm in. That sounds great. And so we launched it with an event at Camp Pendleton and then grew it to 4 and then grew it to 7. And then eventually we only put them on in markets where I had my magazine, Competitor Magazine. We were in Florida. We were in Chicago. We were wherever I had a magazine, and we sold all the events out. So it was a proof of concept for the magazine as well as a pretty cool event. It gave me an opportunity to wear a frog outfit because the whole idea was leapfrog so I could wear a frog outfit. So you'll see a theme, sort of silly stuff.
I'm understanding now. Yes,
And it was
fun though. More fun though.
Fun is great.
It was fun, and you've been that you've kind of been that ambassador of fun for an event, and because how many people
Ambassador of fun. I'm putting that on my card now.
There you
I
go.
like that.
replace Froggy and Chief with
Yes.
ambassador of fun? But and now because not everybody's going to do an Ironman.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we want to keep people. We want to have people put race numbers on. Once they get into our world and realize how fun it is, that you could be in a beer garden at 9 in the morning. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's been one of my big pushes because a lot of people, they hear about triathlon, they go, I want to do Ironman. And then it becomes a bucket list. And they get their M.Dot tattoo on their calf, and they leave our sport. And I want people to do short distance. One of my big pushes is these pool triathlons, which definitely have to have you do Tinsel Triathlon coming up in December. So 3-mile run, followed by a 10-mile bike ride, followed by a 150-yard swim in a pool. Right? And the way you do the pool is you jump in at one end and you swim down, back. It's like, 3 50-meter lengths, and you finish at the other end of the pool. People are scared of triathlon because the swim scares them. Cold water, current, kelp, big fish, someone playing bongos on your head. There's all sorts of negative stuff that's all in the swim.
Right.
But you make the swim, and now you're in warm water. You're doing it after the run and the bike. There's lane lines. There's walls. There's lifeguards.
Yeah.
It's safe.
It's 5 feet of water.
We had 1,500 women doing a pool triathlon in Philadelphia this year. Yeah.
Congratulations,
1,500. Well, it was Steve Del Monte's the race director. I've been showing this video that I put together on this Tinsel Triathlon showing race directors, guys, you can do this anywhere. If there's a community pool, there's a community that lives there. So somebody's going to come out and do the event. And you don't need a lot of road, right? If it's a 3-mile run, you have a 3-mile loop, and then you could do, we have one at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, you do the 3-mile run, and you do 3-mile loops on the bike on the same course, and then you run over to the aquatic center and do the swim. It's low impact. It's reasonably cost. They're 50 to 60%, usually 50% men, 50% women. So it gets all sorts of new people into the sport, which is, that's a big thing for me as I want people to love our world. And, and a lot of people are needing to lose weight. A lot of people are needing motivation. A lot of people just don't know where to start. And so if they start with a 5K, they start with a pool triathlon, and they don't necessarily have to go any deeper. They can keep doing those shorter events, and those will keep you healthy and make you happy.
Right.
And
Nothing
provide
wrong with
community.
And
Right.
provide community, provide
and
partners.
keeping fitness fun, and it's more of like a lifestyle than a slave in the gym. And
Right. Well, that's why CrossFit has been so successful, right? You have a community that you work out with every day.
And there aren't even any mirrors in the gyms.
Right.
There's no
Right.
mirrors in there. It's just you just got yourself and your buddies, and you're working out. And it's fun.
Exactly.
And your injuries.
Shut up. But
Yeah.
I understand that. That's
It's all about, and I just go back when my philosophy is always with competitor that as soon as this race is over, the Rock and Roll San Diego, the race director has an empty corral, right? He has nobody sign up for next year. And I always felt that was my obligation. That was my responsibility at Competitor Magazine, was to fill up those corrals, which why you probably remember our distribution, rather than just being at bike stores and running shops, was at Jamba Juice. And it was at Rubio's. Ralph Rubio's a close friend. He sponsored us in triathlon early on. I'm like, Ralph, this is a perfect combination. California's Fittest Food, California's Fittest Magazine, and people would come in, and the average person before they make a decision to, lose 20 pounds, they're not hiring a nutritionist and they're not hiring a trainer. What they're doing is they're going, okay, instead of a Whopper for lunch, I'm going to have a smoothie. And they go to Jamba Juice. Well, they find Competitor Magazine, and they're leafing through, and then they go, what's a 5K? Oh, 3 miles. I could probably do that. And then they do it. And now once you put a number on, you're in. You're part of the tribe. You're part of our world. So that was really important to me, is that we always understood our obligation was to get new people into our world. And even though I don't have the magazine anymore, that's still really important to me, that people understand that this endurance will change you for the better forever.
Yeah.
So I have one question for
Yes.
you. At a certain point, when they make the movie of you, who's going to play you?
Who's going to play? They got to fit into an Elvis outfit. They got to finish into a frog suit. They got
And run an Ironman.
Yeah, and do an Ironman. Yeah, no. I don't. Of course, it would be Brad Pitt. I don't.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think George Clooney could play.
Clooney could probably do it. He's got enough gray. Yeah.
Where does someone like you, who's done so much for so many people, where do you go? Like where is
Go
like
anywhere.
What's
Like, what's
next?
next?
Like,
Like-
what's your
like how many more boxes can you check?
I just like doing what we're doing. It's when we go to Kona and we do our YouTube interviews, and see, it's funny because we did 58 interviews this year over 6 days and had over 7 million minutes of viewing. And that, to me, is, I look at that and I go, wow, people like this. The average, 9 minutes was the average amount of time people were watching the interviews. I was like, that's pretty cool. So I love the athletes and the stories, and just from the elite athletes. What I love to do with those interviews is people don't understand that, Lionel Sanders is one of the best guys in the sport of triathlon. There was a point where he was standing on a chair with a rope around his neck, ready to jump off and kill himself. And to see how this sport saved his life, and to see him putting out these YouTube videos showing how hard he trains and people being able to relate to him. It's not like a LeBron James identified when he's 12 years old as he's going to be this elite athlete, and he's always had this entourage. Most of our pros started out, like Scott Molina was flipping burgers up at Kmart, right? Lionel Sanders was doing tech writing up in Canada. And so many of our guys had no idea they're going to make a living doing what they're doing. And so they appreciate it. And they have no problem sharing what their journey was, because the people watching at home, they're age group athletes. And the people who are the biggest names in our sport, they were age group athletes. They didn't know. Jan Frodeno didn't know that he was going to make an Olympic team and win a gold medal and then win 3 Ironman World Championships. It was as much a surprise to them as it is to us when all of a sudden we're able to finish a triathlon. So I just think there's a camaraderie. And also, if I'm a golfer, I can't go play the Masters. I can't go on that course and play with those guys on the same day. When I'm at the Ironman World Championship, I'm on the course the same day with the very best in the world. So when we're talking story after the race, it's like, man, the wind was bad out at Javi. They're like, yeah, it was awful. How was it for you? So you can relate to what their journey was because you shared that journey. I just think there's something
the
special.
Spartan race that we did.
Yes.
I mean, because I look over and Ben Greenfield's right next to
Yeah.
me, and I'm like, I've been following all of your stuff for many years, and now we're doing this thing together. I guess this is awesome.
Exactly.
But,
but there's a camaraderie there, and there's a understanding and a respect that goes back to the fact that, Ben's going to get covered with mud just like you are. Ben's going to worry about burning his crotch just like you are, right? Yeah. There's some connection there with all the athletes, and I love that. That's really special.
I always remember Dave Scott. I think his first one was he was just pacing a buddy, right?
No, Dave Scott actually was 1980. He was with me that year. Actually, it's funny when you look at the people. It's our 40th anniversary of doing Ironman this winter. I was just thinking about, I need to bring everybody out here for a 40th anniversary of that. But Dave Scott, who
I want to
ended up
cover
winning-
that.
who ended up winning the Ironman 6 times, and Ned Overend, who was my roommate, went on to become world mountain bike champion, but mountain bikes hadn't been invented yet, right? And Dave McGilvery, who's a race director for Boston Marathon, has run Boston 47 years in a row. All those guys were part of that, our tribe back in 1980 of 108 of us, and we're all still in it. We're all still living it every single day. So it's our sport is a fountain of youth. We were just doing this Mission Bay triathlon, and the guy who was racked next to me, Charlie French, 93 years old. with his disc wheel and his aero bars and with full head of hair. And I'm like, this guy's a rock. 93.
That's
And actually, I just got an email today from Bill Bell. He's 97. Today's his 97th birthday.
No.
Our sport will keep people healthy forever. It really does. I tell people all the time, if you're a runner, the orthopedic reality is eventually you better ride a bike. You better start swimming because you can't keep running because you'll beat yourself up. If you do the other stuff, you can run less and run forever. But to stay healthy and to stay active, it's obviously nutrition, but also just doing these sports, doing endurance will keep you healthy forever.
They said the secret to happiness is something to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to.
There you go.
And
I like that. I've never heard that before.
Well, that's what triathlon is, right?
Well,
You've got people to love. That's your community.
Yep.
You've got something to look forward to. It's a competition, and you've got training. That's something to do.
Something to look forward to. I was interviewing this guy years ago at this master swim meet, and he was 100 years old. And I was like, what's the key to your success? He goes, if you can't beat him, outlive him. That is
Last
a
man
good one.
I
standing.
feel like that's your motto.
Oh, that's absolutely my motto.
You can't beat him, outlive him. That's a good one.
I love that.
That's right.
I'm gonna be the only participant in the 120 and over age division of a triathlon.
Yeah.
Well, when Bill Bell, when he didn't get a sport until he was 50, but then, every time he would age up. And when he was 50, he's competing against 50, he's 55, he's competing with 50-year-olds. When he turned 60, he's still competing with those guys. I think he was 65 when he first called me and said, Bob, the awards are 50 plus. He goes, well, I'm 63. I can't compete with a 50-year-old. I'm like, you're right, Bill. So I reached out to USA Triathlon, then 50 to 54, 55, 59. Then Bill turned 70, and he's like, I can't. I'm 71. I can't compete with these 60-year-olds. So now if you look at the results, they go 90, 94, 95, 99. They go all the way up.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think we have a 100-year-old yet, but we're, the lad at
You'll
Mission
get-
Bay, we had 3 guys in the 80 to 89. 80, 84, and 85, 89. And then we had Charlie French, who was 93.
Wow.
It's pretty special.
That's
And
inspiring.
we have a group, I call us the 65 to death category. So every weekend at the races, we take a photo with our little group. It's like we're there at 5 in the morning. The race starts at 7, and we just love being there. And it's like, why do we do it? Because we can.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that was really important. But finding that piece of video was like, I'm glad we filmed everything because we've got all sorts of cool stuff, man. He had all of it converted. It was all VHS and beta tapes. And it's a lot of pretty cool
VHS, what's that? No,
I
just
know.
Yeah.
I know.
You might
I'm
know
way
that.
before you.
Do you know what beta is? That was.
Yeah,
kidding.
beta.
Beta, I actually don't.
Beta was the big, huge. That was the broadcast quality.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. Beta
Gotcha.
tapes, yes.
No, go ahead.
What? Oh, I was just gonna ask. So about CAF, I live in San Diego, but I've
Right.
never been to where you guys are. And I think tomorrow we're gonna be
You're
with
coming.
you. And so is it a gym? Do people come every day? And,
No.
And okay.
It is. It's our building. So when we were looking we wanted to have a facility, and my partner Jeffrey he owns Flower Hill Mall, and he's just very involved with real estate, and he found this amazing building in Mira Mesa, which at the time was a block away from my competitor building and another block away from where I did my radio show. It was absolutely perfect. But it was going for 2.4. We get 15,000 square feet, got it for 1.6. And Jeffrey told the architects, listen, our athletes they're flawed. They're missing body parts. They're in wheelchairs. We want this building to be as flawed as they are. We don't want one straight line in this building. There's not one straight line in the building. So we've got a timeline when you first come in. It goes through the history of CAF, which is really awesome. We've got an area on display with some prosthetics and chairs and a big map that shows all the places we've sent grants to and little diagrams of all different sports that we provide grants for. And then we've got our 24, 25 staff upstairs. Plus we have our big mixing chamber where we can do. And Bill Walton, the basketball player, got all the screens, Sony to donate these huge video screens. So we've shown premieres of film. My film, We Are Triathletes, we premiered it there with 200 people there. At the same time, we can do a dinner for 150 in rounds. And then we've got a weight room. And one of the reasons we want our weight room, so many of the troops come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're missing body parts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you use your new body when you go to LA Fitness or you go to 24-hour fitness? So you can bring trainers in on the weekend to work with straps to show our guys how to use their new body. So when they go to the gym, there's not that fumbling around. They know how to use their body.
Right.
which
They're
is
more
totally-
comfortable with their
Totally.
new body.
Yep. and then there's showers there and stuff. So we don't. It's not like people come and work out on a regular basis, but we also do wheelchair basketball clinics. We do sit volleyball, which is what Travis, who you'll meet tomorrow, plays on travels with the national team. Some of our quad rugby players train there. Just they set up in the gym in our mixing chamber, which serves as showing a movie, and at the same time, it's a place where we can have workouts. We have a para-triathlon camp, a couple of them, adult camp and a kids camp, paracycling camp. We do running clinics around the country. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a three-week
What would you say
circus.
the percentage is of athletes that it's from, like, they're missing limbs from accidents versus being born?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer on that in terms of
Okay.
congenital and accident, because we obviously service both. So,
Right.
And every year it might be a little different, right? In terms of our grant process starts usually it's early September in terms of people applying, and then it's already people have already applied for this year, and then we'll give the grants out I think in March or April. So that's our favorite time. But reading through the grants and seeing how people are injured, it's pretty amazing. 2 years ago, we had this gal, Lyra Doderline, who was born in Russia, and both her legs are deformed. And her birth parents were told, if you ever want your child to get any type of help, medical help, you need to put her up for adoption. So they did, and she was adopted by parents from Phoenix and came here and had arm crutches and leg braces for the first 14 years of her life. And when she was 14, her doctor was like, as you're getting older, it's not like those legs are getting lighter. You're putting more and more strain on your shoulders. You might want to think about having both legs amputated above the knee because they're non-functional. They'll never be functional. And the adoptive parents are like, oh, my God, are you kidding? And Lyra was like, please, get rid of these things. She falls in love with sled hockey, which if you've not seen sled hockey, you're on this little sled, and you've got two sticks. And on one side of the stick is like little tacky stuff, so to push on the ice. And the other side is a stick, so you shoot with the other side. You would like this sport, Jana. You'd be into it. So anyways, Lyra becomes really good at sled hockey. And anyways, I set it up. We went back to the NHL network, which is also a partner with the MLB network, where we did baseball, and brought her back there to give her a tour of the NHL network. And in the meantime, we had ordered her sled. She never had her own sled, and had it delivered there. And we presented it to her on air with her on-air host of the sled hockey select.
Wow.
And now we just did another piece because 2 years later, she's on the U.S. developmental team for sled hockey, and she's hand cycling. And we have a women's hand cycling team that CAF has created and funds, and the women train all around the country. And it's
amazing.
Great. Actually, this Oksana Masters, same exact disability as Lyra, also came from Russia, was also adopted by parents in the States, and they've got this bond that's unbelievable. And Oksana's multiple-time Paralympic medalist and hop hand cyclist, and Lyra could make the Paralympic hand cycling team for 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so amazing and inspiring, is being able to create these are communities that these individuals are now so invested in.
Yes.
It is their family, it is their life, and it is their fire now. And I think that is so incredible and so special, because I can only imagine there's so many people who get lost and mentally they're struggling, and it's so amazing to hear that there are these communities now where it's like these sports groups or something, that it's like now it's like sled hockey, like that is so neat and interesting and cool, and it's so specific to them now, and that's they can identify, and that is so.
We're gonna watch you play sled hockey.
Yes,
I can't wait.
You play with Lyra, and the best part was that they show you how your worlds collide. Dallas Eakins is the coach of the Anaheim Ducks. Was down here with the Gulls, right? His minor league, he was promoted this year. He's done the Leadville 100 10 times, and he's a top endurance guy. Well, Lyra, when they opening game for the Anaheim Ducks, they introduced the 20 players, and they do this thing called the 21st Duck. The 21st Duck was Lyra Doderline, and she comes skating out on her sled hockey sled with the 20 players, with her name on a jersey just like them with Anaheim Ducks.
Cool.
It was the coolest thing ever. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff.
I love that.
So obviously, life to the max is where adventure meets responsibility, and the responsibility that we want to promote within our our group, our followers, is to support the foundations of the people that we're interviewing. So if someone listening to this wants to get involved with CAF, how do they do that?
ChallengedAthletes.org. Yeah, that's our website.
And
they
what do
can
you guys
go on
need?
and volunteer. They can donate, find out about it. And we've got some phenomenal videos like the one you've seen on Liv Stone, who you're going to chat with a little later. There's so many great pieces of video. Our team is amazing. And it's they'll be motivated and inspired. And they can, our event, the triathlon and the $1 Million Challenge bike ride, they can sign up for those. Those are both next October. The triathlon's a 1 mile swim and a 44-mile bike ride and a 10-mile run. Plus, we've got yoga going on. We've got a spin class. It's a 3-ring circus. There's a lot of the kids run is pretty special. If you haven't seen video of that, watching our amputee kids and our wheelchair kids do this, couple 100-yard run is pretty special.
Bob, thank you so much for being here with us and chatting about everything that you're
Anytime.
doing. This has been really amazing to hear, and it's really inspiring for me too as an athlete, someone who likes to work out. I always love hearing these stories, and I always get re-inspired. It's like we have all of our limbs. Let's use them too. And
Absolutely.
It's
No
thank you
excuses.
for being here with us today.
Well, thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Evan. It's always a pleasure to reconnect with you guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to put all of Bob's information, Challenge Ashley Foundation, in the show notes. But highly encourage you, go check out the site. Check out these videos. I would just venture to, if you're having a bad day, go look at some of this stuff. Because not only is it inspiring, but it's motivating, and it's just powerful stuff. So, again, Bob, thank you so much for being here. It's been an awesome pleasure. I've always wanted to interview you too, because it's like I've just watched you for years. Like, this is just.
And now we got the ocean in our background,
How
and it's like
great is
this is
that?
the best. That's best interview.
And it stopped raining. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this has been an incredible episode. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. Actually, this one deserves a 6-star review. Absolutely,
I agree.
6-star review. And from your co-host
Jana Breslin.
and Evan DeMarco. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.